Hello everyone, welcome to today's news charter. Before beginning with the important topics of the day, let statements about Agnipath scheme is incorrect. Agnipath has been in news regularly in the past 2 years, so it is a duty of a civil services aspirant to know about the scheme very well in proper detailed manner. So four statements are provided. Let us have a look at it. First statement, it allows patriotic and motivated youth to serve in the armed forces for a period of 4 years. So this is a very easy statement. Of course, it allows the patriotic and motivated youth to serve in the armed forces. But is it for 4 years or is it for other number of years? So this particular point is very important. The basics of Agnipath scheme was to include people for just 4 years. So this statement is correct. The second one, after 4 years, only 25% of the batch will be recruited back into their respective services for a period of 20 years. Generally, I have told in several cases, whenever they are giving too many numbers in the statement, usually it's a wrong statement, and here also it is wrong. Study about it, how many percentage of people are recruited for how many number of years. Take a look at it and be very clear about it. It is only for personnel below official ranks, of course, below officer ranks. The scheme envisages to reduce the average age in the workforce. One of the major reason for taking this scheme itself is because Indian Army is considered to be aging, and once you start recruiting the people at very early age, the average age of the army will come down. Why dense fog happens in North India? So during winters, people might have already noticed whenever extreme amount of winter happens, especially in the recent times, too much of fog happens in North India, especially in cities such as the Delhi National Capital Territory region. A lot of dense fog happens. So what exactly is the reason for it? First thing we need to know what exactly is fog. A collection of small droplets of water produced when evaporated water has cooled down and condensed. So, small droplets of water, very small droplets of water, which are condensed and floating in the space, just like clouds. It is called as fog. Just because it is very close to the Earth's surface, we call it as fog, else it would be cloud. So, what are the major conditions for dense fog to happen in North India? One thing, temperature should be lower and too much of moisture should be there. So during winter, what happens is one thing, during summer, the land gets heated up. So too much of moisture accumulation will be there in the space. Immediately, winter happens, very suddenly the winter happens. And when the winter starts, the land surface will cool down to a greater extent because already moisture content is there in the air, because during summer the land surface was hot, which converted the water into moisture. So this moisture is already there, and during winter the land surface has cooled down to a greater extent. Combined together, the moisture will get converted into fog. So very simple. So during winters in North India, temperature drops at night very rapidly, and in early morning the aerosols present in the atmosphere will get condensed. Indo-Gangetic plains during winters, what happens is low temperature will be there, very low wind speed. So this is another problem. If wind speed is very high, it would have been easy for the moisture to get carried away, but wind speed is extremely low, especially in places like Delhi, the wind is completely stagnant, due to which the fog accumulation happens in a greater extent. And in a city like Delhi, what happens is because too much of pollution is there, the pollution particle will get mixed with the fog, which will result in smog. So due to this, too much of respiratory problems and health problems happen. Moisture availability and plenty of aerosols. One of the major point again is western disturbances. That is cyclonic disturbances that are coming to the Indian subcontinent from the western part of the continent, from Asia, from the Mediterranean region. Too much of moisture gets come inside the country because cyclonic disturbances starts developing in the Mediterranean Ocean, which will again result in fog accumulation in North India. So for geography, this topic is very important. Have a look at it, study it very clearly. World Employment and Social Outlook was released recently by the International Labour Organization. International Labour Organization and their reports are extremely important because it is a very important organ and body of the United Nations organizations. So they have told that in the year 2024, the global unemployment rate will actually rise. Also, inequality has been increasing, productivity is less. So, due to these two things, unemployment will be increasing. So, why this is happening? One of the major reason is after COVID, the global economy has not grown to a greater extent. Countries like India has grown at least to some extent, but the global economy as a whole has been stagnant. So this is one of the major reasons. And then multiple wars and conflicts which are going on in Russia, Ukraine, and then Israel, Gaza, and in Yemen, Saudi Arabia. Due to all these problems, the global economy is under a lot of problems. In India, the real wages are positive, which is a good news. What exactly is a real wage? The wages without considering the inflation. We call it as real wage. It is positive when you compare with all other G20 countries. This shows that Indian economy is actually in a much better place. Global unemployment rate in 2023 was 5.1 percentage, which is actually an improvement from 2022. The job gap also show an improvement. Why these kind of points are important and you have to study, because these days statement based questions are coming in the prelims. So this is why these kind of questions are extremely important. Number of workers living in extreme poverty. Extreme poverty, according to the ILO, is when you are earning less than $2.15 per day. That also grew by about 1 million globally. That means a lot of people are losing their livelihood. So these points are important from both prelims and mains perspective. Be very clear about it. Direct tax collection in the recent time has been exceeding. So in examination, you might not be getting any direct questions telling whether the direct tax collection has increased or decreased, how much we have got the collection. These kind of questions will never be asked. But from mains examination point of view specifically, we need to know why direct tax should be given importance than indirect tax. When we talk about indirect tax is paid by everyone. When I go to a shop, I get a product, I pay indirect tax. When a person who is below poverty line, he goes to a shop and gets a product, he also pays the indirect tax. So this is why indirect tax should not be given too much importance by the government, and then the direct tax should be given importance. So what are the advantages of direct tax? One thing, it brings balance in the economy, because the tax rate is set according to the situation of the economy. If the economy is booming and the people are getting a lot of money, then the government can increase the percentage scale of direct tax. So economic balance is provided. Second one, it ensures equality. How it ensures equality? Because direct tax is progressive in India. So when a person is getting more than 1 crore of income, his percentage of tax will be very high. When a person is getting just 10 lakh income per year, his slab is lesser. So it brings equality in the economy. It gives certainty. How it gives a certainty? Because we know what amount of tax a person has to be paid. So it gives a good amount of certainty for the person. Apart from that, it addresses the inflation issue, because, for example, if the country is under inflation and the government doesn't want a lot of money flow in the economy, the government can increase the direct tax slab, so the money will flow into the hands of the government. So less amount of money will be there in the economy for the people to spend. So it reduces the inflation. Then it makes the government accountable, because every person know that he is paying this much amount of money as tax to the government. So the government is getting into accountability here. If we talk about indirect tax, we do not even know how much tax we are paying. Every day we are purchasing several products in the market. Are we checking how much tax we are paying for each and every product? We generally do not check. So that is the invisible tax, whereas direct tax is very visible. You are going to pay it by the end of the year. So it keeps the government as a accountable subject. So these are all the points you should be knowing from mains examination point of view. Classical languages. So recently, what happened? The West Bengal Chief Minister recommended to the Prime Minister to include Bengali as a classical language. So we need to know what are all the important classical languages and what advantages a classical language have. What are the criteria to include a language as a classical language? At present, we have six classical languages. Tamil was the first classical language to be announced in the year 2004. Then Sanskrit, Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, and Odia. All these languages were mentioned as the classical languages. So, from UPSC prelims examination point of view, what you should know? First thing, it is the Ministry of Culture, which is giving the conditions. What are the conditions? A language should have high antiquity, means it should be very old. It should have very early text. It should have a recorded history of over a period of 1500 to 2000 years. So this is the first criteria. It should have a body of ancient literature and text. It should have its own literary tradition. The literary tradition should not be borrowed from any other language, and the language should be distinct from modern language. So in modern language, it could have been talked in a different way, but in classical language it will be very different. It should have very old tradition. So these are all the things which are considered for announcement of a language as a classical language. So for art and culture, GS1, you should know all these conditions. Mains pointers of the year 2023 became the hottest year in history. 2023 was the planet's hottest on record by a substantial margin and the world's warmest in the last 1 lakh years. Who told this? The European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service. For mains examination, you should note down these kind of points. You should make use of these points in your answers, especially in introduction. You will get very good marks. The concentration of CO2 also has increased alongside the human made problems, alongside the amount of pollution we are doing and all other industrialization we are performing. Some natural events also caused this particular result. One of the major problem is El Nino event. During El Nino, what happens? Rainfall happens in the South American borders, the western part of South American border, whereas in Australia and India, the amount of rainfall drops. So due to which temperature rises globally. Apart from that, all several other problems are also there. So these points you can use in your answer. The main practice question of the day, explain breach of privilege. It is a 15-mark question. Two things are asked. First part of the question is you should explain what exactly is breach of privilege. And the second part is critically examine if breach of privilege provision should be used widely in Indian Parliament. So from the mains examination point of view, you should know what exactly is breach of privilege. For a parliamentarian to work independently without any fear, he has been provided with breach of privilege provisions. He has been provided with certain parliamentary privileges. So you should have studied about it already in your polity subject. So mention those things, very static syllabus. First part is over. Second part, critically examine if breach of privilege provision should be used widely. Means should we use it regularly against the parliamentarians? So it should be used in a restrictive manner. First thing, parliamentarians should also have a particular code of conduct. Second, the speaker or the chairman should not use it regularly in a very drastic way because it will reduce the amount of democratic mechanism in the country. So answer accordingly and come up with a way forward also. Prelims pointers for the day. We will be discussing about the Atal Setu. Atal Bihari Vajpayee Sevri Nava Sheva Atal Setu is a new project which is going to reduce the amount of time consumption for travel from Mumbai to Navi Mumbai to a mere 20 minutes ride. At present or earlier, the amount of time consumption used to be 2 hours. Now it is going to be just 20 minutes. Apart from this, this particular project is important for the UPSC Prelims examination because it is the longest sea bridge of India. It is the longest sea bridge of India, and it is a 6-lane project. It comprises of 16.5 kilometer long sea bridge and 5.5 kilometer long road. So these points are important for your examination. Take a note of it and try to revise it also. All the best. We'll meet tomorrow.